Our current paranormal case is the famous Amityville incident that occurred on the morning of November 13, 1974, in the town of Amityville on Long Island, New York. The DeFeo family had been living in the same house since 1965 and witnessed a horrific event on the morning of November 13, 1974. In their home in the town of Amityville, 6 people were found dead in their beds, shot with a .35 caliber rifle. The victims were the parents, Louise and Ronald DeFeo, Ronald's 18-year-old sister Dawn, 13-year-old sister Allison, 12-year-old brother Marc, and 9-year-old brother John Matthew, brutally murdered. The eldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., coldly confessed to committing the murders himself. "Once I started, I couldn't stop. It happened so fast I didn't understand. It was as if it wasn't me, but an entity that had taken over made me do it," he said. This dreadful incident is also known as the Amityville Horror and is often associated with various paranormal and supernatural claims. What differentiates this from a serial killer case to a paranormal case are the mysterious events that followed. After the brutal murder of the DeFeo family at 112 Ocean Avenue, many people began to claim that the house attracted evil spirits and that the murders were committed by these spirits. A year later, the Lutz couple purchased the supposedly cursed house, deciding to make a fresh start. They were aware of the murders that had occurred in the house, but disregarded this and bought the house anyway. The Lutzes moved into their new home in December 1975 and initially called a priest to bless the house. However, during the blessing, the priest heard a voice saying, "Get out." He was frightened and unable to do anything. At first, he did not tell the Lutzes. But after leaving the house, when he tried to reach them by phone, the connection suddenly cut off. The Lutzes could only stay in the house for a month and a half before they had to leave, and later wrote about their experiences. The events experienced by the family were as follows. 1. Despite it being winter, the house was infested with swarms of flies and insects. 2. Kathy started having vivid dreams providing clues about how the murders were committed. The Lutz children began to sleep in the same positions as the DeFeo family's deceased children. 3. Kathy discovered a hidden room in the house, which had walls covered in frightening writings, and their dog Harry consistently refused to enter this room. 4. The Lutz family's young daughter, Missy, started saying that she had made a friend named Jody, a little girl with red eyes, with whom she would talk and play games. 5. Continuous footsteps were heard inside the house, and doors would open and close on their own. 6. While sleeping in their bedrooms, the sound of a radio turning on downstairs could be heard, but when they went down to check, the sound would stop. 7. One night, while checking the garage, George saw a pair of red eyes in the bedroom window, but they disappeared when he went to check. 8. While Kathy was sleeping in bed, the sheets were pulled off by an invisible force and lifted into the air. She could not sleep. 9. Locks, doors, and windows were torn apart by an invisible force. 10. A green liquid seeped from the walls of the house. It was as if the house was crying. 11. George was attacked by a statue of a Chinese lion in the house and inexplicably injured his leg. 12. One night, when George looked at Kathy, he suddenly saw her as a 90-year-old woman. Her hair was disheveled, her skin was pure white, her face was very ugly, and drool was dripping from her toothless mouth. Was there truly an evil presence in the house before the Amityville murders that compelled the young man to kill his entire family? We may never know, but what we do know is that Ronald DeFeo Jr. was financially comfortable, yet emotionally unhappy. His father was overly authoritarian and abusive, and his mother exerted a dominant personality, establishing significant authority over Ronald. All these reasons led Ronald DeFeo Jr. to increasingly face problems. Unable to cope with all these difficulties, Ronald DeFeo began using drugs and alcohol. He applied physical violence to his father and even threatened him with a gun once. His family, hoping for their son's change, tried to help him by giving him weekly gifts and allowances. When he turned 18, Ronald started working at a family-owned car dealership, However, in 1974, he decided to quit his job and started hanging out in bars with his friends, ignoring his family's calls and constantly complaining of feeling lonely. Therefore, he left home. When he returned, everything would change forever. On the morning of that day at 6:30 a.m., DeFeo entered a bar and screamed, "Help me! I think my mom and dad have been shot." When the bar employees arrived at the house on Ocean Boulevard, they encountered a horrific scene. 6 bodies were found in their beds, positioned on their stomachs. The victims had been shot with a high-powered rifle around 3:15 a.m. However, some aspects of the incident did not seem logical. There were no signs of a struggle on the bodies or evidence that they had been drugged. No awake neighbor reported hearing any gunshots. Only the DeFeo family's dog had barked a few times. During the police investigation, Ronald's statement changed repeatedly, drawing attention. At one point, he even claimed that his family was killed by mafia hitman Louis Fellini, but Fellini was abroad at the time. Eventually, Ronald admitted to killing his family himself. On October 14, 1975, Ronald was tried. His lawyer, William Weber, argued that Ronald heard voices telling him to kill his family, suggesting his mental health was not stable. However, the prosecution argued that DeFeo, a drug addict, knew what he was doing when he committed the Amityville murders, even if he were indeed ill. Consequently, a jury found him guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Throughout this, Ronald continued to change his story. He had even claimed that his sister killed their father, after which their mother killed the siblings. Ronald claimed he only killed his mother. By 1990, Ronald alleged that his sister had killed the entire family and was about to kill him when he shot her. He also mentioned in various statements that there was another person in the house. But was there really a spirit in the house?